All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at distributive property and combining like terms. And I understand we're doing one example for each one. You obviously will do many more examples with me. If you do run into trouble on any of the examples, you need to go back and look at them again. And we will practice it in class, as I said. But I want to make sure when I see you that you have a good understanding of how I'm doing these steps. So what we're doing now is we're just going to combine the two things. We're going to do distributive property and combining like terms. All right, so here's an example. As you look at the problem, you're going to notice there are x's, there are numbers, and there are obviously more than one of each. Because of that, that means there's going to be a combining like terms step in here. However, also you'll notice there's parentheses with a number on the outside. That tells me I'm looking at a distributive property problem. The question I would ask you is, what do you do first? And how are you going to remember what you do first? Well, I like to think of it like you guys learned about PEMDAS. Again, I don't like PEMDAS, but since most of you memorized it, what is going to occur first? Addition, from adding things like 5x to other things, or multiplication, which is the operation for distributive property. You're multiplying 4 times x and 4 times 2. Well, as you remember, the m is first, okay, for multiplication. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by doing our distributive property. Okay, so what I like to do at this point, just like I used to teach my students in order of operations, is everything that's left over needs to be just written down below. Okay, and the main reason for that is so we don't forget it. Okay, now we're going to apply what we know about the distributive property. We're going to circle the outside number and multiply it by each of the pieces inside. 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times 2 is 8. Now we have a very simple combining like terms problem. I'm going to combine my 4x with my 5x. Notice I'm using the oval method to kind of distinguish them as being different. Next, I'm going to have my positive 8 and my positive 1, which, as you can see, 4x plus 5x equals 9x, and 8 plus 1 equals 9. Again, remember, I cannot take 9x plus 9 right now. I've got 9 monkeys and 9 snakes. I can't make 18 monkey snakes. It doesn't work that way. I just get a bunch of angry monkeys and a bunch of angry snakes. So you cannot combine things that have different variables or whole numbers. So let's try another example. Okay, as here you'll notice that the distributive property is right in the center. Okay, notice I underline the negative sign, and that's important because we want to make sure that we are including it when we do our multiplication step. Next step, write everything that's left over down below. Now we go to the distributive property. Circling the 3, including the negative sign. This is the most common mistake, is people forget the negative sign. I'm going to multiply negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6, and negative 3 times 1, which is negative 3. Now we employ combining like terms. I've got x's, and I've got numbers. And as you can see, doing this, I end up with negative 1x or negative x, and 9 minus 3 is 6. I'd like you to go ahead and try this one on your own. So pause the video, and when you guys feel like you have the answer, go ahead and hit play. What I do want you to be careful about is I have 2 distributive properties here, so you're going to have to make sure you do both of them. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start off by itemizing both of our distributive property parts on the left side and the right side. First thing, 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Now I move over to the right one. Notice I have a positive 2 outside. 2 times 4 is 8x. And 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, now at this point I need to go ahead and I need to combine like terms. So I've got x's and I've got numbers. There are obviously more negatives here with 15 versus positives with 6. So we're going to go ahead and combine those and get a negative 9. Remember, I cannot turn this into 2x. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so I wanted you to try this one on your own as well. So go ahead and pause the video, give it a try, and hit play when you're ready. So some of you might have gotten stuck. There is no number outside the parentheses here. The key is there is always a number here, and it is a number 1. So in this case, I have a negative 1 on the outside, and I'm going to multiply that negative 1 times both. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3, and negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. Now I'm on to the combining like terms stage, where I've got negative 3x's and 10x's. This is where one of those examples where I say the reason we circled a symbol is so instead of going negative 3 plus 10, I have to remember that I can just go 10 minus 3, which is very quick. Same thing here. I've got a 12 minus 7. I don't have to, overthink it. I'm just going to go 12 minus 7, which is 5. Okay, let's try another one. This one again has two distributive properties. Start with the one on the left based on order of operations, and then work your way to the one on the right. So first thing, circle my 2, multiply both parts. Okay, and I get 14x minus 8. On the other side, I want to make sure I remember that it's not just a 9, it's a negative 9. And I'm going to multiply both parts. And I'm going to get negative 9x minus 9. Okay, now we're at the combining like terms stage. I've got 14x and negative 9x. 14 minus 9 is 5. And negative 8 and negative 9 make negative 17. Okay, go ahead and give this last one a try. 4x plus 2, parentheses 3x plus 7 minus 7x. Pause it, hit play when you're ready. Okay, so first thing is always the distributive property. Bring everything else down so you don't forget about it. And we're going to circle the 2 and multiply. 2 times 3 is 6x. 2 times 7 is 14. And now we have a whole bunch of x's to combine. I've got 4 plus 6 is 10. Minus 7 is 3. And the 14 by itself is just left over. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is just make sure you take the form below, answering any questions that I ask you, and leaving any questions for me that you may have.